Shut up and sit down.
So, full disclosure, I am new to playing Dead by Daylight. I started playing about 3 weeks ago and have come to really enjoy the game. I enjoy playing Survivor with my friends. I find it incredibly fun to play as a survivor who is brightly dressed as possible and annoy killers with my peacocking ass. That said, what I find even more fun is playing killer, though I have to admit that I don't enjoy it hardly as much as when I first started playing. And this brings me to the topic of this video. I wanted to talk about the issues I face as a new player in the game that's actually balanced around new players. We will come back to this comment in a minute. You see, I have really enjoyed my time playing so far. I have even bought Michael and Freddy because they're so iconic. I have even spent time watching YouTube videos to learn how to get better at the game. Although as I watched more and played more, getting progressively better, I have come to realize something. Killers are underpowered. Shocking, I know, it's not like the community hasn't heard this before, but I have noticed that this is a complaint that has largely come from the best players in the game instead of newer players. Usually it's the new players saying that survivors are underpowered and that killers are OP instead of the other way around. So I want to explain how I came to this conclusion and why I, as a player, have been wanting to play Dead by Daylight less and less even though I love the game and its concept. So first things first. I started playing Dead by Daylight on a whim since it was available on Xbox Game Pass. I would have liked to have played it on PC, but if a game's available to me for free, or at least discounted through my subscription to the Game Pass, then I will play it there instead. I don't have a favorite or preferred console. I play wherever it is most convenient to me at the time of purchase. With this said, after playing for a bit as Survivor, I finally worked up the courage to play Killer. I bought Freddy because none of the base game characters interested me, and oh boy was that a mistake. I began to play and found myself doing well for a few Survivor ranks. I started right after rank reset, so I was playing against people of varying skill level. After I hit Hunter rank 16, games started getting harder. I had to learn more about my own mechanics as a hunter, and I started learning how to win pallet loops, something that is very hard to do with Freddy. I also started to encounter players who make builds made to simply bully killers. People running Self-Care, Decisive Strike, Metal of Man, Dead Hard, Adrenaline, Sprint Burst. All of these started to become mainstays in the people I faced. I'm not complaining about this, I just want to give a clear understanding of what started to drive me away. So as my matches got harder, I still persevered all the way down to Killer rank 11. I was pretty happy at this rank, but soon became frustrated as I started to get beaten down by people who have been playing way longer than me with more experience. With a mixture of experience and them having access to all high-tier perks, I began to lose every single match. Players would message me with how bad I was, they would butt dance and juke me. It was a pretty awful experience. Now some of this is on me. I as a player have to realize that there are a lot of people better than me and I just need to learn how to play better. Taking the time to learn typical generator placement, hatch spawn, popular loop placements, learning how to corral the final generators closer to each other, these are all things I need to learn and work on to make my games better. Now to the part of the video where I explain what's wrong and why. I think survivors have too many strong perks, and not in the way you think. You see, when you play a character long enough, you unlock their character-specific perks and make them available for everyone else. This is what makes the survivors broken. With the survivors essentially just becoming a skin, after a while their specialties no longer become their specialties, but just a roadblock for getting their perk on the character you like the most. I'm sorry, but perks like Decisive Strike, Metal of Man, Dead Hard, and Self-Care should only be on their original character. My proposed fix is that character-specific perks should not be able to be universally used. I also believe that it should be limited to one character per match. This would stop the herds of Claudettes that I see all the time from happening. Why I suggest the character limit is so that we can see a more diverse perk pool instead of every match having the same perks. You would start seeing survivors create perk builds unique to their chosen survivor. This also stops survivors from becoming perk-buffed bullies to the killer. A survivor should never feel in control of the killer in the match. The game is a horror game, or at least it has the horror aesthetic. If it is horror, then the monster should not be weaker than the survivors. Imagine watching a Friday the 13th film and Jason just got his ass whipped the whole movie, and was unable to even touch the other characters in the film. That would suck. Of course you would have to balance the game so that you can get the win rate as close to 50-50 as possible, but the killer shouldn't be defenseless to stop the survivors. This comes down to survivors having so much more tools at their disposal. The survivors have a combined total of 16 perks, 4 tools, 8 add-ons, and a potential 4 offerings. Compare this to the killer's 1 offering, 1 tool, 2 add-ons, and 4 perks. The killer is just outclassed in the perks and buffs economy. I hate to be the breaker of bad news, but when you balance the game for the people at the worst level of play, you break the game for the people who are at the best at the game. There is a reason why games like Rainbow Six Siege, Smite, and Overwatch balance to their pro scene instead of balancing to their newer players. The best players know what is wrong and can give better instructions as to what should be changed than someone who has sat down and had a cup of coffee with the game. To put it another way, I wouldn't listen to what someone who has never touched Adobe Premiere Pro has to say about my editing skills, but I would listen to a professional editor. I also have a bone to pick with the developers. Behavior Interactive has got to be the most tone-deaf dev team I have ever listened to. I was amazed at the brass balls of Matthew Sato that told people to maybe not play their game and play something else if they didn't like the game balancing.
Or play something else for a week.
There's a reason why the game nearly died in 2017 when their Steam player count got as low as only 8.4 thousand concurrent users. Their player count is way better now, hanging around in the 20,000 range, but still. There was a moment where this game could have went the same way as another game that came before it, Evolve. This brings me to another point. Dead by Daylight was lucky that it survived, unlike Evolve, because Evolve and Dead by Daylight have the exact same monetization scheme as each other, but for some reason Evolve died a death, whereas Dead by Daylight survived.
Is that blue? Is that fucking blue? This is fucking blue. You're giving me a gun that's painted blue and you want to charge me $2. It's not even good DLC. It's not even good cosmetic skins. Look at this shit. They didn't even put effort into it. What the fuck?
The big concern is the idea that apparently the next monster is going to cost $15. Okay, I can understand that concern. That's pretty much too much, as far as I'm concerned.
AAA products can and do get away with greed-fueled excesses and wanton customer contempt, but this should be seen as a warning that it doesn't always work, and the result of fucking it up can be fatal. The failure of Evolve Stage 2 compounds this. In the video game industry, you only ever get one launch, one first impression, one day to make your game truly count.
I think this has to do with a few things. For one, Evolve came out in 2015, Dead by Daylight came out in mid-2016. The reason why this matters is that hyper-monetization wasn't as prominent in 2015 the same way that it was in 2016. It was there, it definitely was there, but Evolve got crucified for its monetization scheme where Dead by Daylight didn't, even though they have the exact same monetization scheme. In both games, the devs release new monsters/killers, survivors/hunters, and skins for money. In both games, there were certain ways to buy things with the in-game currency, but most of the content cost premium currency. Another disparity was that Evolve was priced at a full $60, the most expensive version I could find through Google at time of release being at $100. This compared to Dead by Daylight's $30 price tag for their special edition makes it understandable why people would be more open to monetization in this form, but it does show how much Behavior Interactive lucked out with finding a player base in the first place. So for the devs to only cater to the survivors in terms of player balancing is ridiculous. The only thing the killer gets is the ability to play some of horror's most iconic killers, but that is ruined since the game balance doesn't play into the power fantasy of being one of these powerful killers. The fact that Ghostface made it to the PTR in the state that he was says a lot about how they view and create killers. They make them look cool or rely on name value, but making them strong isn't part of the process. Ghostface is much better now, but he is soon getting a hotfix nerf right after release. The design behind him, though, is awful. He's another stealth killer with a stalk ability. He is basically right now a better version of Michael Myers. With a few interesting perks, not powerful, but interesting, I don't know how they missed the opportunity to make a tracking stealth character. Ghostface is famous for stalking people and calling them to play mind games with them. Why didn't he come with an ability to random call one survivor and the survivor has to do a healing/mending style prompt to turn off their phones? While this is happening, the player is revealed and Ghostface becomes invisible or loses his terror radius to that specific person. That would have been way more interesting and unique to him. He would have been the only killer in the game to play like this. I don't know the exact details on how long the cooldown for the ability would be, or how long the player would have to take to turn their phones off, but it shows how the devs don't want to bring anything interesting to the table for the killers. With all of this stuff in my mind, I just couldn't bring myself to want to play killer. I also lost the want to play Survivor because I felt like it was my only choice, and that made me not want to play. I like playing Killer, but if I feel like the game is punishing me for playing it, then I just don't want to play. This game is dependent on having a large enough player base to support itself. The game needs killers, but the killers don't want to play. And what happens if there aren't any killers to play? The game dies. The people who main Killer will eventually leave if they feel unwelcomed, or they stop having fun. I just started playing the game, and I can't imagine how killers who have put way more time and money into the game feel about the constant nerf to killers and buffs to survivors. Unbreakable just got buffed by 10% on every level of the perk. That's insane, since it has been one of my favorite perks and felt like it was already ridiculously strong. Medal of Man just got nerfed, but to be honest, it was really just fixed, since the idea of the perk was to promote altruism in the first place. Now the perk can't be used as a selfish get-out-of-jail-free card like it used to. I don't consider that a nerf, I consider it a fix. I guess to end the video, I want to say that I, as a new player coming into the game 3 years after its release, already feels pushed out and bullied away from playing the game the way I want to. I feel bad for the people who play Killers and have been a part of the community since day one and have been ignored. It makes no sense that at high levels there are only 2 or 3 viable options in Nurse, Billy, and Spirit, yet every survivor is viable because they can all use each other's perks. Killers are bullied for doing well with some of the saltiest messages that I have ever seen and received. Survivors only get nerfed when devs get embarrassed publicly by high-tier players, and they tell people to not play their game if they don't like it.
Another question, playing Killers was fun a long time ago, but now it's only stressful. But that's an opinion, a valid opinion, but that's an opinion. I used to love playing as a killer, win or lose, it was fun, but currently no matter what, it's just filled with stress and anger. Killers aren't feared anymore. Do you have any plans or ideas how you would like to improve the killer experience? Well, I would say maybe try Survivor for a bit. No, but it's true. I mean, change it up. Maybe you're just tired, you know? Or play something else for a week. Try Civilization or something.
It's uncomfortable, and I would rather play something else and not spend my money on this dev company. I still want the game to get better, but until it does, consider me, Behavior Interactive, as the guy who just started playing and fell in love with the game, to no longer love the game and no longer play.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello, if you're one of the dozens of people who watch me, I just want to say thank you and to let you know that I am working on some bigger projects. I can't say when they will be done, but they will be around 20 to 40 minute long videos looking deeply at games and their design. I have been having trouble coming up with interesting topics, and I never want to release a video that is just to fit the YouTube algorithm of consistent uploads for the sake of growing as a channel. I want to produce quality, and I will always put quality first. If I come up with something that is shorter and that I feel is good enough to release, I will release it, but for right now, I am only working on these 3 big projects. Thank you for understanding, and here is a hint for something that I'm working on.
Это еще что?